Time once again to unscrew the lid on another time capsule. We're going to bury this to be dug up in 1,000 years' time. We're going to put in there stories from this week's news. And we're also going to choose some things to conceal from the people of the future, lest it reflect poorly on us. And I'm genuinely delighted. Often I say I'm delighted, but I'm not genuinely delighted. I added in the genuine to prove it. I'm genuinely delighted to have on the programme tonight Alex Lowe. Hello.
Hello there. Great to be here.
It's been a long time coming, this. I was saying on the radio a minute ago that I think I first saw your show in maybe like 1999 or 2000 or something like that.
Yes, I did a show in Edinburgh about British wrestling.
Yeah.
In which I played Giant Haystacks and Big Daddy and Kendo Nagasaki, Jackie Pallo and all that sort of thing.
It was really quite... Jackie
great.
Pallo's the one that sticks in them.
Well,
Les was the
Les Kellett.
Yes, he's the one who
hardest,
sticks... Yes.
nastiest wrestler there ever was. He was the kind of real deal.
Right.
And Jackie Pallo was famous because he gave away the secrets of wrestling in a book called You Grunt, I'll Groan. But it was one of those things. I got to 30, and you sort of sit around waiting for the world to beat a part of your door as an actor.
Right.
And one day I thought, look, the least I can do is just do my own show at Edinburgh.
Yeah.
And Edinburgh Nights came along, and Peter Kay brought up Bomber Pat Roach to review it for Edinburgh Nights. Right. And at the end of it, I'll never forget, Bomber Pat Roach said, I've not seen you on the circuits doing any wrestling, and I thought, well, it's clearly a play, isn't it? And so I looked at Peter, who just kind of shrugged, Peter Kay, and then I said, no, well, I'm an actor, and he said, it was Tiger Ryan's funeral recently, I didn't see you there. And I thought, I can't say it again. And now, whenever I see Peter Kay, he says to me, I didn't see you at Tiger Ryan's funeral. But, yeah, great. I really enjoyed doing that show, and thank you for saying that.
Yeah, it's brilliant. We'll talk about... We had Angelos on the other week.
Oh, yes.
But we'll talk about the tour and the podcast in a bit. But first, let's get down to business. What is the first thing that we should put in the time capsule?
Well, Geoff, there's only one story in the news, and that is that a squirrel has been found on Mars. Did you see that one? Sharp-eyed internet users have spotted the animal on an official NASA photograph taken by the Curiosity rover soon after it landed in March 2012. The UFO Sightings Daily website. This is the thing that kills me. They've seen this thing. I mean, I don't know whether it's a shadow or it really is.
Let's go with it really big.
It really is. Yeah. And they are suggesting that the reason NASA have not admitted to it is not that it's a shadow, it's because they're frightened of being sued by PETA or PETA, the animal rights people, because they think that they sent it up there to see whether it could survive in an atmosphere of no air and no nuts, presumably.
Why a squirrel?
I don't know why a squirrel. Good point. I mean,
I suppose it's red. If it's an American one, it's red and it would blend in.
I think it's a grey one. I think it's a grey squirrel. But I mean, it's part of this long list of things that people have spotted that I've just looked up now. There's a super volcano, a pyramid. They've seen on the surface of Mars an alien skeleton, the Dark Lady, which I had a look at, and I gotta say, it looks a bit like Sue Pollard off of Heidi High. So if you're wondering what happened to Sue, and a Mars henge, which is not just a random collection of stones. They think it might be a Stonehenge type thing up there. And they if you look closely, it probably is, because you see lots of Italian school children with backpacks walking around it. Star Wars spaceship. My favourite, number 7, a spoon. They found a spoon up there.
That's a good zoom they've got on that camera.
And an alien scorpion. So, it's only a matter of time before a Tesco Express gets stuck up there, because they're everywhere else.
This has inspired me. I presently will have a little more time to myself, and I think maybe scouring photographs of the landscape of Mars could be a new activity for me.
I have to say, I'm kind of mocking it, but it really is fascinating if you get involved with that, because some of this stuff does look like it. It really does.
And if it looks like it must be it.
Must be.
Yeah, there's no other explanation.
It's the double bluff. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. So that's it, really. That is the story. And do I decide now whether we want to keep it forever?
Yes, will we keep it?
I think we should, because in years to come, when they discover that there is indeed squirrels, a colony of squirrels, alien skeletons and Sue Pollard on Mars, then we'll say this was the moment we discovered
Yeah,
it.
these people are the pioneers of our time.
Yeah.
Anabelle, what would you like to conceal first?
I would like to keep the man who made a will.
Sorry, keep.
Yeah. A man.
I mean, as I say, it's a flimsy
Very.
construct at best, but
very.
let's try and keep it on.
Yeah. So it's the man who made a wheelchair for a goldfish that couldn't swim properly. Did you see the photo of it? I did not. Oh, it's so nice. Yeah. So the fish had swim bladder disease,
Yes.
which affects its buoyancy, which meant the fish was stuck at the bottom of the tank. I do wonder how much the fish cared. It's a goldfish.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it couldn't go in that little shipwreck in the tank. Do you think any fish are fooled by that? Or they spend any time thinking about where that ship was travelling and why it sank and what happened to the shipmates? I hope so. I hope that's what they're thinking about. But he made the chair out of little weights, styrofoam, a bit of styrofoam, tubing and valves, and it keeps him propped up so he can bob around the tank. It's really nice. I hope he gets some perks.
Yeah,
like maybe he doesn't have to queue to have a look at the treasure chest. maybe he goes straight in. It's really nice.
All right, good. There's the first couple of things in this week's time capsule. I'm going to play a song and then we will choose some things to conceal from the people of the future. It's Absolute Radio. So we're choosing stories to go in this week's time capsule, and I mean, what do I say? Do I say comic actor? Do I say comedian? Do I just say
comic
polymath?
Comic actor, I think.
Yeah, Alex Lowe is helping us with this week. Alex, what don't you want the people of the year 3017 knowing about?
Oh, well, here's something. It's a woman. This woman. She went for a job interview. It got cancelled because she had the temerity to ask how much she was going to be paid. It's a woman in Winnipeg, Taylor Burns. She tweeted that she was interviewing for a menu development job with a food delivery service. Skip the dishes. She asked what the money was. They said, I don't think you're quite the person.
Is that frowned upon in a job interview then?
Well, that's working as an actor, I never expect to earn any money anyway, so it's not. I suppose so. I think that's probably the thing nowadays, that you're supposed to bang on about what a team player you are, and you know that the team spirit is much more important than actually paying your mortgage in some strange way.
Well, there are all those strange things that people tell you to do at job interviews. Like you're supposed to, if you're intimidated, you're supposed to imagine the person opposite you going to the toilet on you, right? That's one of the things. And then, what's
the toilet on you?
Yeah, so is that what it is?
No.
And then if they say, what do you sell?
I thought it was naked, not going to the toilet
Maybe
on
it is.
you.
Maybe it is that. Yeah.
No, now you're thinking of something
That's
else.
why I didn't get the job.
Yeah.
And then there's the one where if they say, what do you see yourself doing in 5 years' time? And you say, I see myself doing your job and you're unemployed and destitute.
I always think
that one?
Yeah, the one you always hear is when people say, I went to a university degree course interview, and the guy said to me, he had my CV in front of me, and he said, what's your definition of a risk? And I just got my lighter out and I lit my CV. And you think, if you did that in real life, I mean, the idea is the bloke then goes, God, that was a real risk. You are just the guy we need at this university. But in real life, if you did that, they called the police, that would be the end of it. But no, I mean, the funny thing is, I was going to say about sort of being in showbiz at the low level that I am, you never really earn very much money, and the people I surround myself with are happy to go and do stuff for no money anyway. So this is anathema to me, going in and asking about how much I'm going to get.
Aren't you supposed to have somebody ask that for you to avoid the awkwardness?
I suppose so. I don't like to include him in that because he takes some money.
Right, of course.
I mean, one of my neighbours, we did something for BBC 4, and I was filming a Barry from Watford thing for this Marcus Brigstock show we did. And this is how people are so keen to get into sort of television and showbiz. One of my neighbours, Kathy, who's, she must be in her early 80s. And I just remember saying, look, there's not much budget for this thing. Would you mind? She's like 3 or 4 doors up from me. Would you mind if we did a bit of filming in your house? She said, that would be good. And I said, look, I'm really sorry, but there's not much money. Is £100 okay? She went, right, and I pay that, do I?
Oh.
And I thought, you poor old dear.
You told her yes, right?
Of course I did. I'm not an idiot. That was double my wages. But yeah, you have to pay for all these people to come in and wreck your house.
Anabelle, what do you want to hide from the people of the future?
So most news stories this week are about Ed Sheeran, but this is my favourite headline out of them all. Ed Sheeran's murderous otter goes on a killing spree. Can I just point out, this was also in the Daily Telegraph. I'm not talking about the Daily Star here. Yeah, Ed Sheeran's murderous otter goes on a killing spree. Because it turns out that Ed Sheeran owns a zoo at his house.
No.
Remember when we first learned that Michael Jackson had a zoo? What we thought about him?
Yeah.
Though Michael Jackson did have tigers, giraffes, an elephant, llamas, rams, snakes, flamingos, chimpanzee. Whereas Ed says he has cats, otters, hedgehogs, herons and barn owls. Does he just live in the countryside?
It's not a zoo.
Yeah. But it does turn out that he does own the otter because he said one of his otters killed his koi fish. Vicious though otters, aren't they?
Oh, yeah.
Terry Nutkins lost both his arms to an otter. Also, at his house, Ed Sheeran has got an underground tunnel leading to a private pub. He'll be building an amusement park soon, mark my words.
This isn't going to end well. This isn't going to end well, is it? All right, another song, and then we will choose 2 final things to go in this week's time capsule. Crowded House, don't dream it's over. So just 2 more things to go into this week's time capsule. Alex Lowe, what would you like your final contribution to be?
My final contribution is this. You know, I often wonder how on earth did Donald Trump get elected to the White House? And then I read this, that a group of housewives from Massachusetts have been knitting pullovers for chickens. So that's sort of that's it, basically.
Which way did that state swing?
So it's 76-year-old Libby Kaplan and her friends Nancy Kearns. It keeps the birds warm. What can I say? You know, it said Libby Kaplan says the experience has helped her overcome her fear of birds. It's done nothing to help me overcome my fear of Midwest Americans. One person I heard said there are more important things to do in this world. Make things for people that need it. I think animals need to be warm too, and I'm so glad we did it. So, yeah, that's it really.
It's amazing that chickens have been around this long without pullovers.
Well, I thought, evolution would suggest that they have feathers. I mean, if you really want to keep the chickens warm, what's wrong with covering them in 11 different herbs and spices and shoving it? But so that's it really. It's a no-brainer. I don't know whether I want to save that one.
Well, I mean, it's very contingent on are there photos of chickens in pullovers?
Yeah.
I dare say if you go and Google it, you can see it. I think it was in the Daily Mirror.
Are they tight-fitting, the pullovers? Because
if that's how you want to imagine them, mate. If that does something for you. Snug, yeah.
Well, there's a lot of plumage going on a chicken, isn't there? You know?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. To be fair to these women, I think some of these chickens are there's a Malaysian one that molts. So in the winter, I spent too long reading this. I know all about this subject, but I think that on occasion they do need the little. Well,
it's nice to see Americans, a story of Americans welcoming immigrants. Then, if the Malaysian chickens,
quite right, absolutely right. Yeah.
Annabelle.
Robot Wars, the clip of Robot Wars this week. I haven't seen any of the new series, but obviously I saw the clip with a team of adults and a team of children, which does seem a bit unfair, worse even than the 2 against 1 on Blockbusters. But I don't think it's like that every week. Anyway, the children win, and one man from the adults is so furious, he hands the controller to the man next to him and storms off. But he wasn't angry about the kids winning, though, he says afterwards. He's just really angry with his teammates because they made a poor decision involving a risky experimental grabber, and he was dead against it, and he got outvoted. But I love the way that before he storms off, he hands the controller over the man next to him. So I think it's so symbolic. It's him saying, well, I never was in control, was I? And he couldn't even bear to have it in his hands. Like, I probably would have smashed it on the floor.
Yes.
But you don't want to anger a man holding a controller to something called Sir Killalot or Sergeant Bash or Mr. Psycho. He should have kept it and then remote controlled that robot out of the pit and then smashed it into his colleagues. That's what he should have done. So he clearly wasn't that angry.
Let me tell you something about Robot Wars.
Yeah.
So you know when you're flicking through the channels, like there's Challenge TV and they show old episodes of game shows and it's fun looking at the contestants because they look so dated.
Yeah.
It is impossible to tell whether you're watching present day or old Robot Wars. The contestants on that, they don't change at all. Right. All right, I'm going to screw the lid on here, and this week we are concealing from the people of the future a woman not being given a job because she asked for money, and Ed Sheeran's murderous otter going on a killing spree, and in there go the squirrel and detritus on Mars, goldfish in a wheelchair, housewives knitting pullovers for chickens, and we call it the Robot Wars flounce.
Yes.
All right, Alex, can I keep you here 3 minutes longer and then we'll talk about your various projects?
Yes.
I saw you in years ago is you did the wrestling show, then you did a show about Radio 1 when it changed from being like the old dinosaur DJs to being sort of the enfant terrible, which was Chris Evans. And I came to see that show with most of Chris Evans's employees from his breakfast show.
Oh dear, yeah.
They loved it.
Did they?
They really loved it.
Yeah. Oh, I occasionally I know Dan McGraw a bit.
Oh yeah,
so,
Dan.
He's told me a few stories about those days. Yeah, but those were both books by Simon Garfield. And in the wrestling one in particular, it turns out that Dan Skinner, my double act partner who plays Angelos, at the very same time was looking for a show to do at Edinburgh, kind of solo show, but I managed to get in there just before.
You beat him to it?
Just beat him to it, yeah.
So there's no Clark Kent situation here. We can acknowledge that Dan is Angelos and that you are Barry.
Yeah. We've been touring the Angelos and Barry the new power generation all around the country, and we're doing a bit more due to demand. We're going out on the road again, and we're doing various festivals, and we're doing Scotland, and we're doing Latitude. So we just got to we did a podcast, and that did well, and then we left there because we were owed lots of money, no one paid us, and started doing our own podcast where we earned no money, and then we sort of sold some tickets up and down the country. But
and you've got merch.
We did have some T-shirts printed. We might do that again. It's great. I mean, the lovely things, having done quite a lot of stand-up as Barry and what have you, is so lovely being in a double act. It doesn't feel nearly as lonely.
So how did those two? I can't remember. How did those two characters come together?
Well, I do a show at the 100 Club in Oxford Street called Barry's Bingo. Yeah, and Dan, I got him along to do Angelos, and we sort of hit it off, and we did.
But what's the backstory for the characters though? How do Angelos and Barry know each other?
We have all sorts of ways that they met up. They met up with the bookies. They met up at Mensa, and both couldn't figure out how to get in, so ended up standing outside. All sorts of stories. I mean, our podcast has got no rhyme nor reason, so we make up stuff all the time.
And Barry from Watford started life on Ian Lee's radio show, right?
Yeah, that's right, on LBC.
And then when you started doing it on like Steve Wright's show and on Radio 2 and elsewhere, did Ian feel like you were cheating on him a little?
I don't think so. No. I don't think so.
Because there's a touch of the Peter Cook calling up LBC to Barry.
I think if you are a kind of egomaniac, you will find any sort of outlet to do your character. But I mean, what happened? I had a show on XFM, and Ian used to phone up as Mike from Camden, which is just him. It didn't sound I don't know whether he was putting on a voice or not, but I could tell it was him. And, try and say stupid things. And so when he started on LBC, I had this character based on my kind of Cockney forebears from South East London. And I just phoned up, and there's a whole thing about, Ian, you're talking to Noah about slugs, how to get rid of slugs. And the one thing I know is my wife's perfume gets rid of them, because one whiff of my wife's Charlie and they're curling up. And, so from then on, we sort of kept it going, and, people thought it was a real old man. But no one really breaks the spell.
But another thing is, I've noticed that from Twitter, people are obsessed with sending you photographs of real life Barrys. He's got a real everyman quality to him. Yeah,
I mean, I'm really delighted that they search out people who.
I was in John Lewis's the other week, and there was a man who looked so much like Barry. I was thinking, what are the ethics of taking a photograph of this man?
Well, yeah, I can't condone that. People are always taking pictures of people unwittingly and then sending them to me. Yeah,
but not strictly condoned.
Not condoned. But I'm flattered that anyone's interested. So,
and the other thing that came up when I was just reading up on you, which I never knew, you were in Grange Hill for a bit.
I did a little bit in Grange Hill, not as a student.
Right.
As Grange Hill went through a phase of doing issues every week. AIDS, ecology, unemployment.
Right.
And I was in that as a anti-road campaigner or something.
Were you inspired by Swampy at all?
Yeah, it was very much that sort of thing. Yeah.
And was Mrs. McCluskey still the head teacher?
No, sadly not. There was no Bullet Baxter. There was
no Mr. Bronson.
No, none of those.
So Barry's Bingo is how often?
Well, it's kind of once in blue moon. We did one last night in.
Who did you have as a guest?
Do you know who we had?
No, because I saw you alluding to.
You will never believe it. Bobby Davro.
Really?
Yeah, Bobby Davro. And of course, he absolutely stormed it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we had all these kind of slightly alternative anti-comedians.
Yeah.
And he came on after a bloke called Chris McGlade, who's brilliant political comedian who rants and raves. And I came on with Barry and said, and now for some more, hard-hitting political satire, it's Bobby Davro. And then Bobby came on doing his stuff. And he was fantastic. You know, it was no surprise he was going to be absolutely brilliant because he's a proper craftsman.
Yeah. So I always wonder with those guys if they feel a little bit left beat, because they honed this craft and their timing's generally impeccable. They know how to tell a joke, and then kind of like punk ripped up a certain type of music, alternative comedy comes along and rips it up for them.
This was not Bobby, I have to say. He wasn't like this, but I recently did a gig, and I'm not going to name names, but they were in The Comedians, these guys, which was, a big comedy show in the 70s. And that is literally all they can talk about. How the kind of Oxbridge lot came and took it away, or the Saturday Night Live crowd. And you think, well, you're talking about 1981. It's time to get over that. It's such a long time ago. I mean, that is a bit of a, that's the perennial cry of these people. That they would, but you would feel cheated, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but then maybe you try and adapt your act accordingly.
I suppose so. And there are people who have managed to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, arguably Les Dennis, Ricky Gervais sort of turned his fortunes around.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would probably be tempted to try something new, or develop a character, or do a warts and all story at the Edinburgh Festival or something.
Yeah, because that's the thing as well, isn't it? You sometimes get people from
going up there. And,
always enjoy that.
Yeah, I think kind of. Best comedy is always kind of bittersweet, isn't it?
Yes.
It's if there's an air of pathos behind it, that's what's appealing about it.
So that's Barry's bingo. So you can go to that sometime in the future.
Sometime in the future. Yeah.
But a more pressing matter is the tour then.
Yes.
Barry and Angelos and Barry. So there are. How many dates you got left then?
We've only got a few in the spring, and then we're hoping to go out again in the autumn. But we collected some lovely reviews, including from The Guardian, a puerile delight.
Great.
I mean, it is puerile, whether it's a delight. My mum was saying, yes, well, not certain whether that's a good review or a bad review, but I mean, it is really childish.
Take the delight.
Yeah, and Dan and I were actually talking this week about what we should use from the reviews for our publicity. And I was in favour of, it also says, smutty, nutty, puerile delight. And there's another bit which we're thinking of using, which is, I think it's from The Stand or The Guardian, which says something about the performers leave their dignity at the door. So Dan's all in favour of putting that in. I'm not so certain.
Has anyone asked for the money back?
No.
There you go. You must be doing something right then. It's so great to have you on the show after all these years. Good luck with the tour.
Thank you so
Alex
much.
Lowe, thank you.
Appreciate it.